The all-new, retro-styled Nikon Zf full-frame mirrorless camera is now available. So why should you buy it? Find out next. It looks so cool, the styling on this Zf camera, and I love how it's a bit of an homage throwback to the Nikon FM2. Actually, it's very reminiscent of my first ever Canon AV1 film camera. Looks very similar, doesn't it? But before we get too much into the reasons why you should buy, let's go and have a look at the official specs. The Zf has the same X-Speed 7 processor that we see in the Z8 and Z9 cameras. It has a 24.5 megapixel BSI CMOS sensor, premium brass dials, comes in 7 different color variations, and can shoot up to an impressive 30 frames per second. It has subject detection AF with 273 focus points with 3D tracking. It has an ISO of 100 to 64,000. You can now get very high resolution photos out of this camera via the use of pixel shift, giving you images of up to approximately 96 megapixels. It also has pre-release capture that you see in the Z8 and Z9 models, 10-bit 4K 60p video, manual focus subject detection, and a very impressive and all-new 8 stops of VR inbuilt. On top of the camera, it now has a dedicated black and white switch for black and white photography. And a world first focus point VR where the camera maximizes image stabilization based on where your focus point is. I was actually surprised at those specs when I first saw them. In fact, it's such good news that we're now seeing those higher end specs from the Z8 and Z9, and they're making their way down. They're filtering into those more budget-friendly cameras. Anyway, that being said, here are my top 5 reasons why you should go and buy the Nikon Zf. The Nikon Zf is Nikon's first full-frame camera with a fully articulated LCD rear screen. A lot of photographers and video makers have longed for this feature, and now they finally have it. That means vloggers and video content creators can now safely frame themselves without having to use the force. Now, whether you're in the studio or out in the field, this comes in so handy. And until now, they only had the likes of the Nikon ZFC and Z30 APS-C cameras to choose from when you're doing that. Having a fully articulated screen is extremely useful when you're shooting low-angle portrait style shots like you see here when I was using the Canon R5. I know a lot of photographers prefer the tilt screen, but now at least other photographers have a choice. Personally, with that 24.5 BSI CMOS sensor, I think that's a real sweet spot in terms of sensor size. You don't get those massive files that clog up all your hard drives or your computer drives. Plus, it's awesome in low light, as you can see using it on the Z6 II in these low light video shots. The price is very good in my opinion for this camera and what you get, especially considering some of those specs are from the more expensive Z8 and Z9 cameras. When I saw it during the release video, I gave out a little hallelujah. It now has subject detection AF, basically the same as what you see from the Z8 and Z9. That means you can get eye detect on people, birds, cars. It's going to be such an amazing experience being able to use this camera and just having that peace of mind knowing that you've got that subject detection there. It really does make for an enjoyable photography experience. And lastly, the Zf should be amazing in low light situations with a max ISO now at 64,000 and focus detection now reaching as low as -10 EV. So when you're shooting in low light, especially in combination with that 8 stops of VR, should make life a lot easier for photographers and videographers alike. You know, I was just thinking while I was watching the release video, if Andy Warhol were alive today, this would probably be the camera he's using, given his flair for being unique and love of all things retro. So what do you think of the Nikon Zf? I think it's a really cool little camera, especially with those specs at that price point. Will you be buying it? Let me know in the comments below. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. Never stop creating, and I'll see you next time.